that we may discuss our Lord and Savior Minarchy. No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name's Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama productions, and pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRNradio. You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at KLRNradio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KLRNradio.
Hi, everyone. This is JJ, the co-founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the #1 way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
And welcome in. It is Sunday night, which means you know what time it is. It is time for Corin's Reading Room, hosted by none other than Mr. Corin Nimick himself. And here he is yet again with us, the man, the myth, the legend, right now as we speak.
What's up? Howdy. How are you, Rick?
I'm hanging in there, man. I'm hanging in there. How's things with you? How's things? Whoops, hang on. Gotta fix it.
I'm so tiny. Doing good, man. Doing good. A quick shout out to Mose Jackson for that beautiful opening music, and to KLRN Radio for hosting this avant-garde show. And I appreciate you guys very much. It's been interesting to go back through. This book has taken us forever, but it is very cool. Oh, look, I have low disk space on my computer. Greetings, Cicely. She's welcome to the show. You are always welcome to the show. Again, we are reading The Philosophy of Fire, and it is a Rosie Crucian book written by Rosie Crucian, which is Reverend R. Swinburne Clymer. I love his name, Swinburne. How do you go through life with a name like that? I don't know if it's pronounced Swinburne or Swinburne, to be honest, but it's probably Swinburne. But really, he's written some great stuff. This is a very interesting read, and we've been having some fun with it, I think. I'm going to see how far we get through it tonight, Rick, because I'm dying to go on to those Akashic Record books, and I'm thinking that no matter where we end up tonight, I'll leave the rest of this book to the audience to read should they want to. It's a fantastic read.
I'm not sure I trust you saying that, because you've said that to me 3 times. And
I've said it 3 times, but 3 is a charm. It's the charm. And we'll see. Delicious coffee. I love it. But we left off on page 142 out of 261 pages. So we've damn near made it a little over halfway through in like 5 weeks.
Yeah, it's been fun though.
It has. I keep getting inspired to continue with this darn thing because it gets so interesting when we dive into it. And it's sad because he's got some great chapters coming up about Egypt and ancient Persia and some stuff like that. But again, I don't think we'll make it that far. But if we do, right on. If not, then I will make the hard choice at the end here whether I just stick this thing back on my shelf or we continue on with it next week. I'm sure everybody out there is probably like, okay, enough already. We get it.
Nah, I think they like it. You've had really good numbers with this one, but I
It's
know
been
it's
fun.
good. I know it's confusing for us time wise because we did some pre-records, but this is actually like the 9th week on this one, sir.
Oh my Lord. I don't even want to think about that. 9 weeks have passed already.
Yep.
Man, time flies. Time flies. Well, I'm just going to dive in and we'll just do like we normally do. We'll chop it up for anybody who's just tuning in. I don't read the whole book. I just read areas that I've outlined that were of interest to me when I read it the first time, and so this is a refresher for me too. But
And then he has existential moments occasionally when he reads the notes and he's like, "Where did this guy go?"
yeah, I was reading some of the notes before you came on, and that I have in here, and I'm like, wow, dude, that guy's pretty far out. That guy knows some stuff. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, that was me. That's bizarre. But here it says, the Magi's art is therefore based on a science far deeper and more exact than modern physical science has yet dreamed of. And back of it lies a philosophy as boundless as the universe, as inexhaustible as time, and as beneficent as the Father of heaven. All human progress runs in cycles. Modern materialistic science is having its brief day and must gradually take its rightful place. True philosophy has already undermined its foundation. The New Age will initiate a genuine revival of spiritual philosophy and an exact science of life. There is in nature one most potent force by means of which a single person, knowing how to direct it, could revolutionize and change the whole face of the world. It is a universal agent whose supreme law is equilibrium, and when controlled by science, it will be possible to send a thought in an instant around the world. Thought creates a vibration. The sound of a trumpet, vibration, destroyed the walls of Jericho. There is a life principle, a universal agent, wherein are two natures and a double current of love and wrath. This ambient fluid pervades everything. It is the body of the Holy Spirit, the universal agent, the serpent devouring its tail, symbol at once of continued youth and immortality of the soul, plus unlimited power. The initiate alchemists were fully informed of this electromagnetic ether, this vital and luminous caloric force developable to a degree by everyone. Yeah, when I was studying at the Taoist Institute of Los Angeles, and I wish I had continued studying there. I allowed my life to get too busy, and actually, I ended up moving, partially to Texas, and that's kind of what took me out of my studies there. But they got into a lot of this idea of the electromagnetic ether and this luminous caloric force that's developable to a degree by all of us. And I have written here on a side note, energy, actual physical energy, is the effect of the cause of the source of creation itself, or the cosmic mind, the collective unconsciousness. And we'll get into some of that when we dive into the Akashic record books. But it is interesting that that in a deep meditated state, there is a change in the frequency and the vibration that we feel internally, and things do kind of, it's like watching, it's like stirring up a glass of water when there's dirt on the bottom, and you watch it get cloudy. And then if you sit there and you let it and you if you let it just sit there for long enough, it will resettle, and that dirt will end up back at the bottom, and you'll have clear glass from there to the top of pure water. And that's similar to what is occurring when meditation is practiced on a daily basis, which I don't do anymore, and I should. But I'm speaking from previous knowledge and intellectual understanding. But this can also be practiced as a living meditation. We can feel when our own our own internal energy is shifting and changing due to the everyday stresses of life and the conditions that we find ourselves under. And when we're slowly relaxing and settling ourselves, we're allowing that great drama that's playing about in our minds, in the inner universe of the mind. And there's a chaos that goes on there, and I recognize it a lot throughout my own days when things are stressful, and when I'm behind on doing stuff, when I'm not accomplishing certain goals and all that, or I'm thinking about the past too much or the future too much. There's kind of this chaos that's ensuing, and I'm not at all in present time. And I can feel that tension. And my acting teacher Manu always said that tension is energy going to places where it doesn't belong, where it's not needed or wanted. And simple biofeedback exercises demonstrate this as well. Yeah, exactly, Samuel. In fact, I was just at this really cool place called Escape Relaxation, which has all these modern devices. It's got like an negative ion pad you can lie on, and it's got sound frequency treatment, or therapy as it's called. And those two I found, I mean, the massage chairs were amazing, but those two, man, this negative ion, it's like grounding. It's when you're going out without your shoes on in the grass, and you're practicing the grounding technique, that this negative ion pad that you lie on does the same thing, or is based on the same principle. And man, I mean, within like I'd say less than a minute, maximum within 3 minutes, 1 to 3 minutes, I was in such a deeply meditated state. It was like halfway between being asleep and awake, and just so unbelievably relaxed, and so much mental tension was evaporated. I mean, it was mind blowing. I want to buy one of these things and have it here. I'll never get off of it. But that's I think what is being touched on here is that the electromagnetic ether, this force that permeates the entirety of the universe. We are already connected to it, whether we want to be or not. And that the mental plane is trapped within that kind of etheric electromagnetic field. The brain, from in this respect, the brain wouldn't necessarily be the mechanism that the mind exists in. It would be more of the kind of the internal workings of the computer that would allow the spirit and the mind to operate the body. Because there are people who have had been in kind of states of coma or other types of medical situations where for all intents and purposes, the brain was no longer functioning. But miraculously, when they returned back into their bodies from wherever they they were completely aware of everything that was going on. And many have stated that they were outside of the body, being able to perceive themselves in the hospital. and that's near-death experiences as well. So those many experiences that have been recorded out there by people certainly would indicate that there is a psychological field that exists outside of the body and outside of the meat pack we call a brain. You know what I'm saying, Rick? I mean, I'm sure that you've got delved into stuff like that yourself at times. There
Yes.
he is. You were in the bathroom. I know it.
No, I was doing behind the scenes stuff and putting out all the promos and stuff. And when I tried to come back, the system said no. But yeah, no, I mean, this is just this whole concept just is astounding to me, because we get so hung up on all the physical. And then at some point we start realizing physicality can't be all there is, because and I've said this on a couple of these different episodes, even science says matter can neither be created nor destroyed. So when when this is gone, there's still more to remain. So the idea of this divine spark, or this energy that is surrounded by, this meat suit and this, as you just said, this meat pack we call our brain, it I get astounded by it. I'll be completely honest. It's hard to think about, because we're so ingrained in this is all there is.
Totally.
And it takes a lot to try to move away from that. So yeah, I don't know. I'm still trying to wrap my own meat pack around all of this myself.
Yeah, me too, brother. Me too, man. It's I'm trying to consider life as sort of like a living prayer, like a living meditation. When I was walking my dog earlier, it reminded me of seeing these Buddhists who do this walking bell meditation, where they take these very slow steps, and when they finish the step, they ring the bell, and then they take this other really slow step, and they ring the bell. And I was reminded of that, because I had tried that when I was studying at the Taoist Institute. And it's not something you really do, unfortunately, in this day and age in public, because people will be like, who's the crazy, slow walking, ringing bell guy, going around the neighborhood again, but you do need some distance to practice this particular meditation. And I was reminded of the effect of it. And I kind of slowed my walk down, even though I had to keep up with Theodore, my beautiful corgi. Even though I had to keep up with him, I was like, let me just for a moment, let me just slow down and remind myself of that experience of of not being in a rush to do anything. Don't even be in a rush to walk the dog. Like, don't be in a hurry to get back home. Just, let the dog walk me, hello there. Tiarte. We'll say Tierte. Welcome, everyone. And Samuel says, I haven't been a practicing pagan in years, but I have experienced many of these things in my younger days: astral projection, energy manipulation, transfer, etc. Manipulation. Yeah, that's rad. I don't know if you. I'm sure that you're aware that the pagan just means country folk, but I dig what you're saying. That there is these practices. I would say it's probably like what the Cathari were practicing, or the ancient Druids of times hence past. So I'm going to dive in, because I said that I'm going to try and nail some of this stuff too. It says, okay, so the Bible, with all the allegories it contains, expresses in a veiled and incomplete manner only the religious science of the Hebrews, the doctrines of Moses and the prophets, identical at bottom with that of the ancient Egyptians, also had its outer meaning and its mysteries hidden behind a veil. And they were written in symbols unintelligible to the profane. The true secret in traditional philosophy was only written afterward under a veil still less transparent. Thus was a second Bible born, unknown to, or rather uncomprehended by the Christians of later times, a collection, they say, of monstrous absurdities, a monument, initiates say, wherein it is to be found everything that the genius of philosophy and of religion has ever formed or imagined of the sublime, a treasure surrounded by thorns, words, a diamond concealed in a rough, dark stone. The Kabbalah then consecrates the alliance of the universal reason and divine word. It establishes, by the counterpoise of two forces apparently opposite, the eternal balance of being. It reconciles reason with faith and power with liberty, science with mystery. It has the keys of the present, past, and future. The necessary union of ideas and signs, the trinity of words, letters, and numbers, 10 ciphers and 22 letters, a triangle, a square, and a circle. These are the elements of the Kabbalah. These are the elementary principles of the written word, reflection of the spoken word, which created the world. Life may be represented by a triangle, at the apex of which is God. Of this triangle, the two sides are formed by two streams, the one flowing outward, the other upward. The base may be taken to represent the material plane. Real knowledge, or the growth of wisdom in man, is an eternal becoming, a progressive transformation of the crude and material into the likeness of the supreme goodness and supreme power. And we've talked about that in a lot of these episodes, is that transformation of the base nature of ourselves, that kind of, that what we call kind of the animalistic nature, and the transmutation of that into some kind of higher form of experience. And it's like being reactive versus responsive. The reaction is generally speaking can be the wrong behavior, or the wrong comment to make after somebody says something or does something or whatever. We react, and there's it's this idea that when we're living, I was just thinking about this earlier. And I talk about it quite a bit in this particular book here, Creating a Character for the Stage of Life, which is based on the New Era acting technique, which I was taught by Manu Tupou at the American Repertory Company, which I studied with him for about 15 years before he passed away. And his whole point was to recognize that who we think we are is for all intents and purposes is a mock-up of an identity that we've become accustomed to, or that we become used to, and it's based on a whole series of experiences and learned behavior and all of the stuff that's gone on throughout our entire lives. I've talked about it in enough episodes. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds on it, but that even recognizing that all of that is just a programmed identity. It's a personality complex that's not necessarily organic or real, but because we feel like we are who we are, all of it suddenly becomes super real to us, and we latch on to this character or this identity that we've created for ourselves, and we will not let it go. We will fight to our death to prove that we are who we think we are. But whereas in the kind of the Buddhistic traditions, it's the exact opposite. In that philosophy, it's like, no, you're nothing, you're nowhere, you're no one, there's no time. That all of this is just experience, and the letting go of the necessity to have to always be this person that we think we are, all this stuff we have to hang on to in order to prove that this this person is important and exists and is real, and we got to go out there into the physical universe, and we have to have people agree with us or recognize us or hear us or whatever, acknowledge us. And there it says, the age-old question to find the true self, but it's not in the looking, it's in the letting go. It's not in trying to find out who we really are. It's in letting go of the whole entire idea of wanting to even know who we are, that we find the true self. That's kind of the great mystery. And if you are into transcendental meditation, like the gentleman said earlier, that process is in a great letting go, and there's such a huge relief to know that I don't matter, that this whole idea of myself, on my whole career, what accomplishments I've made, what accomplishments I haven't made, the things I've done wrong, the things I've done right, all of this whole machination of thoughts and ideas. When I remind myself at the end of the day that none of that really matters, we're all going to meet our maker at some point. We're all going to cross the river Styx, and when that happens, there has to be a great letting go. In the Masonic initiation, that's part of the whole process of the 3 degrees of initiation, especially in the 3rd degree, is this dying of the old self in order to be born anew. And that doesn't mean that the new identity or the new character is anything more than just a vibrational field that exists in a body that's experiencing life and witnessing time pass. You know what I'm saying?
No, it's just, again, this goes back to one of the things that I've been struggling with, because especially people of my faith, we always live our entire life like we have some sort of major calling, and we just have to figure out what it is. Like there's some be all and end all reason that we're here. And coming to terms with kind of the opposite of, the reason why we're here is because we're basically the seeing eye dogs of the universe. Because the universe needs
Yep.
to know and understand itself, and that's the real reason why we're here. It kind of it's kind of the opposite of everything we're ever taught, which I think is part of where this whole identity crisis comes from, because we are taught that we matter so much, when in the grand scheme of things, we really kind of don't. I mean, think about it from another perspective. We hear this all the time from the climate change folks, and I'm not trying to downplay them because I'm not going to get into that argument one way or the other. But it's always, we're destroying the planet. That's not entirely true. The planet's still going to be here. There will be life on this planet. It just may not involve us anymore. So
Yeah, we're more destroying ourselves than anything
when,
else, right?
when you come to terms with that and realize that in reality what you're doing is destroying yourself, it also makes you realize how small you actually are. Because, I mean, Mars is still a planet. We're now discovering that there may be microbes on Mars, and there's possibly water on Mars, and there's all these things but Mars is still a planet. It still exists. So the idea that we're destroying something, no, we may be changing the face of it, and we may not always do that in the best ways. But part of that, again, is because people have bought into this whole idea of I matter and I have to leave a mark on the world so people know I was here.
Totally, 100%. On the in the chat room there, uh, Samuel was talking about Timothy Leary. I actually he was godfather to one of my best friends growing up, Balthazar Getty, and at a party at Balt's family's house, he was there, and I got to hang out, have a couple of drinks with him, and I was profoundly shocked that he really had zero interest in talking about any of these kind of things we're talking about right now. It was a trip. He really did. I mean, I think he was just burnt out on it at that point, he had already been through it all. He's like, dude, I don't want to talk about any of that, but it was interesting. I tried to force the conversation longer than he wanted. but yes, and then let's see. Michael says, I think each of us has an imposter self that came to us as children to protect us. There is some interesting ideas that I don't want to get too in the weeds on it, but about this concept that there are these angelic beings, as well as these demonic beings, and they exist in these parallel dimensions, and they have these a force on us, and we can, in a weakened state, we can give in to these demonic forces, and in a heightened state we can be supported by the angelic forces, and that our doppelganger is this egocentric idea of self that is supported by the demonic forces, and that is the cause of all of our troubles in life. And but whether it's angelic, demonic, or anything else, to me it doesn't really matter, because once I can recognize in myself that my personality is nothing but a totally created thing, and I can disagree with it 100%, then I'm out of that ego-based, egocentric, you know, personality that is the cause of all of my woes in the past and potentially in the future. To unlearn, easier said than done for a lot of people. Yes, exactly, Cindy or Cicely. Sorry, my glasses only work this close. When it gets that far, they start to not work anymore. But jumping on, it says the word of power that reached beyond their vision and changed the mental condition that produced the disease was too much for their comprehension. Disease does not enter in any manner from without. That which is external simply awakens that which is already within us. Disease is not an entity, it is simply a depolarization that sights and sounds lure the imagination into activity. I claim, and in this faculty of the mind, depolarization of the spirit's action takes place, which causes a sudden condensation of spirit in some parts of the system to the damage of other parts less destitute. Thus, the system is all thrown out of harmony because the normal action of spirit is disturbed. Polarize the system, establish equilibrium, and cure quickly results. Belief being the fundamental principle of power, and man being more physical than mental. The Magi used charms, amulets, and talismans to inspire the belief of the ignorant and material, and produced many cures. And that goes, I wrote in here on the side that just psychosomatic illness. You know, I do certainly believe that being spiritually fit helps physical ailments to heal. But I'm not of the mind that just because I might be spiritually sick, that is the cause of, say, a parasitic infection. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you know, there has to be a balance here where, you know, if you've been stung by a bee and you have cellulitis and the swelling and discoloration of the skin is getting so extreme, that you know, but you're like, hey man, spiritually I will heal this, and by the next day, you know, your whole leg is swollen up and you have to be rushed to the emergency room. It probably would have been more responsible to just go to the emergency room the day before, right?
Hey man,
So you know,
don't call me out on the show. Don't call me out on. I hate going to the doctor. I avoid it like the plague if I can.
yeah, I don't dig the doctor either, and I'm much like you, but I certainly am not, you know, someone who's more like the Christ scientist thing, where it's like, you know, healing hands will get rid of all things. I mean, you know, there are certain ailments that must be dealt with, you know, by modern science in a trustworthy fashion. I'm also certainly aware that modern science is a cause of many ailments as much as it is a fix.
I wish
for
that
some.
wasn't as true as it is,
But,
but yeah, it's sometimes it's the cause.
Mhm. Yeah, it does sound like an acid trip. Is it? What does Samuel say? As I know we've touched on the idea on Twix, Mr. Nemec, and I'll reiterate that you're always welcome to come back on. Let me move my cursor on SITV, on SITV whenever you want. Yes, thank you so much, and I appreciate that. And I'm sure that I will. So it goes on here. It says, all action is dual, direct and reflex. If material substances act on and create mental conditions, then mental conditions act on and create material things. The impure disease imagination, finding in the physical organism soil suitable for the purpose, impregnates it and generates bacilli or bacteria, right? The bacteriologist with his microscope discovers bacilli and assumes that they are self-created or produced by material chemical actions on the physical atoms. There is no motion of muscle, tendon, ligament that is not started first by mental action and will through, not by the brain. Mental uncleanliness is apt to generate bodily uncleanliness, and then the bacillus is a logical sequence. I mean, you know, I get what he's saying here, but again, if you eat some pork that isn't exactly cooked through, you know what I'm saying? That's not going to matter just how what you were thinking about the night before. It's not, you know what
Sounds
I'm
like
saying?
sounds like a
So I'm
line
not.
from a Christmas. What was the book with Scrooge in it? What was it? A Christmas? No, it wasn't a Christmas. I don't remember the actual
Mhm.
name of it, but he's like, I think you're an undone bit of potato.
A
Yeah.
Christmas Carol.
The part where he's talking to the ghost, he's like, I'm pretty sure you're an undone bit of potato. Yeah, that's not how that works.
So it goes on. It says the ancient mysteries of which the secret doctrine was an integral part was the universally diffused religion of the ancient world, and may be said to have been the directive force until the time of Constantine, the turning period in the world's history. Here we began the throttling of the old religious philosophies in favor of the newly fabricated one, making use of the old to build the new, and condemning all who continue to hold to the old. Three specific fundamental positions underlie the secret doctrine of the ancient mysteries. One, an omnipresent, eternal, boundless, and immutable principle on which all speculation is possible, since it transcends the power of human conception and could only be dwarfed by any human expression or similitude. This infinite and eternal cause, unconsciousness, and unknowable spirit or consciousness and matter are to be regarded not as independent realities, but as the two facets or aspects of the absolute, which constitutes the basis of conditional being, whether subjective or objective. Two, the second, the eternity of the universe in toto as a boundless plane, periodically the playground of numberless universes incessantly manifesting and disappearing. The eternity of the pilgrim, the monad or self in man, is like a wink of the eye of self existence. And three, the fundamental identity of all souls with the universal oversoul or cosmic soul, this being itself an aspect of the unknown, and the obligatory pilgrimage of every soul through cycle of incarnation in accordance with the cyclic and karmic law during the whole term. The pivotal doctrine of the Eastern philosophy admits no privileges or specific gifts to man, save those won by his own soul by personal effort and merit through a long series of development and possibly many incarnations. Souls are reincarnated many times, but not the person, which implies the body. The body returns to the dust from whence it came. So it says the three specific fundamental propositions underlie the secret doctrine of the ancient mysteries. One, an omnipresent, eternal, boundless, and immutable principle. Two, the eternity of the universe in toto as a boundless plane, periodically the playground of numberless universes incessantly manifesting and disappearing. And three, the fundamental identity of all souls with the universal oversoul or cosmic soul, this being itself an aspect of the unknown and the obligatory pilgrimage of every soul. So it's basically they're saying that there has to be a truth, that there is an omnipresent, eternal, and boundless and immutable principle in the universe, and that the eternity of the universe is factual, that it just goes on and on and on, and revolves around itself into eternity, and then the fact that we ourselves as individual souls are part and parcel to the universal oversoul or the cosmic soul, and that through a cycle of incarnation, we will hopefully eventually come to know ourselves as being a fundamental part or an aspect or a projection of that oversoul, which to me is really rad. What Rick was just saying a moment ago, that what if the only point for all of the physical universe and our conscious existence is simply so that the universe can be consciously aware of itself through us. And if that's the entire point of the whole entire existence of the universe and us in conjunction with it, that a hyper conscious individual who can look into the universe and recognize themselves in it and the universe within them, then the cycle is complete. Then everything else that's going on around us is just one great big drama. and all of these, because somebody who's living on that plane of consciousness, they cannot break a law because they're already living by a cosmic law that wouldn't allow them to, steal from somebody or to harm somebody or to, harm nature in such a way that it would not be able to recover, or and so on, and because if we look at nature in and of itself, nature, as beautiful as it is, if you really look at it, it is a kind of a chaos. It is wild. It is untamed. There's wolves out there hunting cute little bunnies and ravaging them and ripping them apart and eating them. You know what I'm saying? There's, and then there's the bear that will gently eat a berry, but God forbid you're a salmon, or whatever. I mean, there are certain species of monkey that hate other species of monkey, and they will fight to the death against each other. There is hyenas that will eat the hell out of a gazelle. There's it's a wild, savage, reality, but it finds a balance. There's a balance to it all. But when I'm reading subject matter like this, and I'm contemplating what Rick was mentioning earlier about the whole point of it all is that recognition that, that we're all one here, then it's the same type of balance that nature eventually finds if we leave it alone. One species won't overpopulate because there's a balance to all of nature that you cannot, unless man intervenes and changes it or alters it. It's like when we go out and we hunt all of the wolves and we get rid of all of the animals that hunt the deers. There's a deer, there's an overpopulation of deer. And when there's an overpopulation of deer, generally speaking, they end up with certain ailments and certain problems. And, then there's they don't have enough to, they eat all of their, I mean, I'm sure that they wouldn't run out of stuff to eat necessarily, but they do find that it becomes chaos for the deers is all I'm saying. Thankfully there's deer hunting season and we get to cull the herd, so to speak. But my point is really just that that it's when we find that absolute balance within ourselves, then we've found the balance to the whole experience. And I think that's pretty rad, So it says, into the soul of the individual is breathed the Spirit of God, divine, pure, and without blemish. I'll read that again. Into the soul of the individual is breathed the Spirit of God, divine, pure, and without blemish. It is part of God. And the individual has, in his earth life, to nourish that spirit and feed it as a flame with oil. When you put oil into a lamp, the essence passes into and becomes flame. So is it with the spirit of him who nourishes the soul. It grows gradually pure and becomes the soul. When a soul has once become regenerated, it returns to a body only as at its own free will, as a redeemer or messenger of light to those not yet regenerated or become one with the hierarchies. Such a one may regain in the flesh the memory of the past. Every soul must work out its own salvation. In the early church, as in the secret doctrine, there was not one Christ for the whole world, but a potential Christos in every man. The theologians first made a fetish of the impersonal, omnipresent divinity and then tore Christos from the hearts of all humanity in order to deify a personality that they might have a God-man peculiarly their own. And I think that goes into, if anybody's familiar with Mithraism, that the cult of Mithras, the sun god, the dying and resurrecting sun god, that really came out of Persia, but was adopted by the Romans. A lot of the traditions and even holidays associated with that ancient tradition, Christianity was kind of overlaid on that when they adopted Christianity as the state religion of ancient Rome. And so what was Christianity? How was it practiced before it was adopted as a state religion versus after? And there's that's a whole can of worms that you can open up and see that that there was definitely a difference in the practice of that religion before and after the Nicene Council. But I love this one line right here: into the soul of the individual is breathed the Spirit of God, divine, pure, and without blemish. And that's kind of like, the whole point of what we've been talking about almost this whole book, is that, inside of every single one of us is that kind of infant self that's untouched by all of our experiences, by all the negative things that we've experienced in this life, or the behaviors that we've that we've acted out on, that we regret. Or I would assume that pretty much all of us have said or done something in our lifetime that we wish we could take back. But maybe I'm the only one, but
I have a list. If I gave out the list, we'd be here till next week. So
but see, but that right there is the beauty of this idea versus this unchanging concept of human nature, that you can't change a person, or that a person can't evolve from who they've been programmed to become or to be, by their experiences. And if you can't even disagree with who you think you are, and say, no, I can be better than that. I can overcome, my difficulties, and those character traits that I don't like about myself. I can overcome those, and I can allow myself to be a better person. That right there is, like, to me, that's like the first step on the greatest journey that I have ahead of me, is just knowing that, like you said earlier, change is the only constant. Life is going to change all around me. My body is going to change. Things are going to change. If I'm not attempting to at least change with it in a positive direction, then I'm no better than the beasts of the field. And that's, maybe that's just where I'm supposed to lie, but I would rather have, I would rather, at least in whatever incremental fashion I can accomplish, some bit of change, as I grow and as I get into my dotage. I'd rather lay on my deathbed in my final hours and be able to think back on my life and go, man, I at least I tried my damnedest to get to some place, better internally. There was, I can't remember if I was reading it or if I was just thinking it earlier, but it was just that very idea that if I'm not trying at least to be a better person. Oh, that's what it was. It was, the greatest accomplishment, that maybe I read it in one of my side notes earlier when I was going through this book, but it's, I wish I could find it, because it was so clear, clearly stated. But it's, you can accomplish all kinds of things in life, and you can have all of this, all of this collection of stuff, the house, the car, the big bank account, all of this physical stuff. But it's not nearly as important as if you've accomplished being a good person. If you've accomplished being kind and generous and thoughtful, and to me, yeah, tapping into the principle of eternal progression, totally, Jim. And that's like, that to me is the greatest accomplishment ever. My son, currently he's studying with a Vietnamese Buddhist monk, and that's really what he that's the path that he wants to take. And I'm like, I'm all stoked for him, and I'm kind of trapped, because I'm like, in this physical world that we're in right now, you kind of also need to make a little money. You know what I'm saying? Because as time has gone on, granted, he's getting of age, but he'll before before he started working the job he's working now, he was kind of in between jobs, and yeah, he was going to doing his Buddhist meditations and his cool stuff and reading all his books, which I applaud him for. But eventually the phone would ring and be like, "Hey, Dad, can you float me a couple bucks?" And I have no problem doing that, of course. But it just goes to prove that this physical universe is going to force you to have to play its game one way or another, or you'll be like the Indian fakirs, and you'll be living on the street, begging for money, saying this is my karma, and in order for me to get, to raise my karmic state, I have to live this way. That's a choice. That's a personal choice. You can make that choice and say that's your karma, but I think that you're deciding that rather than it being decided for you, so, I've just been stressing that, yeah, I want to see him do that too, but just currently to find that, like I need to find, like I think we all need to find, is that balance between the two worlds, the metaphysical and the physical, and finding that equilibrium, where we're vibing in a positive way that allows us to still enjoy the hard times as much as we enjoy the good times,
Yeah, no, I mean, seriously, we've talked about that before. In all things, there have to be balance. It because without balance, you don't have anything. I mean, think about it from another perspective. When you're riding a bike, you lean too far one way or the other, you're going to fall over. Bal- Balance is
Totally.
essential. It doesn't matter whether it's the physicality, whether it's the spiritual. You have to find a balance between the two. And I think it is a valid point that you brought up that, even if you are somebody who's trying to find your way into the more metaphysical realm of things, you still have to dwell in the physical universe for as long as you're trapped in this shell. So you still have to figure out how to play by the universe's rules.
Yeah, Dennis gets me. He's talking. He has a similar experience that I was just talking about. That's cool. Real quick, I know we only got like 8 minutes and change left. But let me look. I'm gonna end up doing the same thing I do
told
every
you.
week. Like, damn it! Dude, there's so much juiciness in this book. We have, there's so much juice in here, man. But I mean, especially there's a whole section on Atlantis.
I would like
it's
to
just
point
so
out that I
juicy.
called this at the beginning of the episode, ladies and gentlemen.
I know you did. So it says here, a personal absolute exists not except in potency. God does not think, but is the cause of thought. God does not love, he is love in the perfect or absolute sense. And so with all the divine attributes. God is thus the concealed logos, the causeless cause. God never manifests himself to be seen of men except symbolically in the form of light or fire. Creation is his manifestation, and as creation is not complete and never will be, and as it never had a beginning as such, there is a concealed or unrevealed potency back of and beyond all creation, which is still God. All men are brothers by right of being born of woman and through the same first cause and by all the laws of nature and the very being of God. But as long as religion defines heresy as a crime or imagines a God with human attributes, man's inhumanity to man will continue to make countless millions mourn and find vent for all evil passions justified by their ideas of God. I mean, that first part right there, man, we're not going to even get past this in the next few minutes, but it's a personal absolute exists not except in potency. God does not think, but is the cause of thought. I mean, that right there is that's going to get into the Akashic record stuff, and a personal absolute exists not except in potency. And what that means to me is that I can't be the absolute end all be all of all things. That's an egocentric condition of thinking. But the potency of a personal absolute, meaning that the sensation or the feeling of being individual, but an individual what? An individual radiating part of the divine, you know. So but God does not think, but is the cause of thought. So the idea that we're even thinking or have the potential of higher thought is divine. You know, it's pretty rad to take that kind of a position, that because then it wipes the slate clean. You don't have to be Christian, Jewish, Muslim, Zoroastrian, Buddhist, this, that, the other. All of them can be right in their own ways about whatever it is, you know. But taking away all the dogma and having that personal connection with the absolute and just being a pure radiating pinpoint of light that's emanating from that source and just feeling that vibe. That's kind of what it's all about. You know, I'm not saying that I have that experience every day. Intellectually, I get it. And every now and then I feel it, you know, but what would that be like if it was felt all the time, all day long, all night long? You know, that would be really rad. And was that a condition that humankind, was that potentially, if unless you're into the whole Darwinian thing, you know, I feel like we've had a devolution with the human race, not an evolution. I feel like at some point in our distant past, we were far more highly evolved than we are today, and that there was some type of fall, and now we're trying to climb back up to that. That's my personal, you know, idea of it all. Not saying I'm right or wrong. That's just my personal thoughts on the subject. But that in striving to you know, to be a better person, that experience will resonate in such a way that we can then make other people's lives better, not only
Yeah.
our own. I mean, is that making any sense?
No, I mean, honestly, that's been one of my striving things that I've been trying to teach from the second I started doing all this. Start by making sure you're okay first, and then start working out from your family, and then start in your corner of the world, and just do what you can to make it as the best that you can make it. Because if we all did that, nobody we knew would have problems ever. And if they did, they would have help.
Totally.
But we're all so busy focusing on, you know, how to get exactly where we think we need to be that we don't realize that, you know, the whole point is to bring everybody with you when you get there.
Yeah, 100%. And then at least to be in a kind of a blind acceptance you know, of those who could care less about all of this, instead, you know, and not force feed anything on anyone, because then that in and of itself would be egoistic.
Yeah.
You know, to try and say this is the truth, this is the way, this is how it is. I certainly can't say that. I might vibe that, think that, feel that, and write about that, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. And therein lies kind of therein lies the rub. You know, it's like a Pandora's box. You know, it's like a Schrodinger's cat. Is there a cat in the box? We won't know until we open it. But you know, the theory is there's a cat in the box, but I can't prove it. And then who's to say I can even open the box? If I can't open the box, if it's physically impossible to, if there's no possible way to open it, then I can never prove that there's a cat in the box. You know, I can only assume it and tell others that there's a cat in the box, and then it's up to them to, you know, to believe it. But that's kind of what the, you know, this whole conundrum is that it really can't be proved unless somebody experiences the philosophy of fire within themselves, the spark of divine light heating themselves up from the inside. Real quick, let me just ask the folks out there who are in the chat. I mean, you know, just give me a yes or no if I should continue with the philosophy of fire next Sunday or move on to the Akashic record. Just yes for I should continue with it and we'll try and finish this up, or no, let's go on to the Akashic record. There's the first three folks that say yes or no, and I'll take those as the indicator, or nothing at all.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Oh, yes. Okay. Okay, cool. Oh, Katso's here. Wonderful. There's always a cat in the box. Yeah, that's true. All right, I'm going to go with Robert Ben. We're going to go with a yes. Robert Ben has decided for us. So it's not my decision, Rick. I didn't decide
Sure
this
you didn't.
time. But I'm glad because it gets into some there's such cool stuff. And then we're going to get into Atlantis in here and ancient Egypt and all kinds of cool stuff. So we'll just keep having fun with this book. And by the end of the year, we'll finish it.
Yeah, actually, more than one person has chimed in and said that we should continue with it. So I'm cool with that. I will say that this. Dr. Seuss answered the question about the cat in the box a long time ago. It's a cat in a hat, not a box.
And on that note, the music begins. Hey, thanks everybody for tuning in, and I really appreciate you guys. And yes, that is true. The Akashic records are tempting, and we will dive into them. There's some great books. You guys are going to love those. So we'll catch up next Sunday. And thank you, KLRN Radio, for hosting this show. It's very cool of you, Rick Robinson. You are the man.
All right, folks, hang out for Lost Wanderer up next for those that are so inclined. That will be our closing act for the evening because Al is off due to technical issues. But if you would like to, you can hang out for that one. And we'll see you guys next week.